Welcome to A Drink of Wisdom. With Jay Wise, I'm your host, Cody Ward. Thank you for spending some of your time with us tonight. And as a reminder to all our listeners, besides being on all your favorite podcast platforms, A Drink of Wisdom is also on YouTube with each show segment available. Head on over, and if you like what you hear, well, we would appreciate your subscription. Drink is off tonight, so it's just you and me. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, man? I've been waiting for this for several days now. I'm not too pleased at the moment with some of the things I'm witnessing. But shout out to Drink. We miss him. We hope to have him back Friday. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let's go ahead and get into this. I'm not too pleased right now.
I know you're ready for the first topic. Let's go ahead and get into it. At episode 19, we're checking in on the Brady and Bill divorce, taking a look back at Week 11 in the NFL, and bringing you all the latest college football recaps and rankings. But we begin tonight with some more COVID issues in the NFL. And specifically, let's go ahead and take a look at two games that were treated very differently by the NFL this week. One of the bigger headlines over the weekend were the Denver Broncos taking on the Saints Sunday with no quarterbacks thanks to COVID-19 protocols. This is a sharp contrast to the Steelers-Ravens Thanksgiving game, which was moved 3 separate times and just wrapped up here on a Wednesday evening as we record this. So, Jay, it's evident that the NFL took some seriously different measures between these two games. So go ahead and take us through what happened and if the NFL got this right or wrong.
You know what happened? I mean, this is the think about some of the things that have happened that have been of significance. When teams have had outbreaks, the NFL's posted games, and I get it. Look, the Baltimore Ravens had an outbreak. They have had a positive case for like 10 days straight. The game was originally going to be the saving grace of Thanksgiving, because we know how just atrocious those other two games were. So that was going to be, the prime time special, the one that you could really sink your teeth into. And then next thing you know, they push it to I think they pushed it to Sunday. Then they pushed it to Tuesday. Then they pushed it to Wednesday. And not only did they push it to Wednesday, they pushed it to Wednesday on a 3:40. Like that's gonna, because most of the viewing population is, not employed doing something. So thank you for that, NFL. Great job. So I'm not mad that I'm not all that upset that the Ravens and Steelers game got postponed. I mean, you'd like to see it not get postponed 3 times. But no one, I'm not necessarily, angry at that. And of course, you go back to the Tennessee Titans, that, they were kind of the team under the microscope towards the beginning of the season. I want to say they had 2 games that got, I think they had 2 weeks where they had some issues and they had postponements. And remember, the Steelers have been affected by this twice, really no fault of their own. And they had their bye week taken up earlier in the season, and they also, I think Juju Smith-Schuster, and I believe there was one other Steeler player that was, a little salty on Twitter.
Chase Claypool was not happy either.
Chase Claypool, because they, you taking the Thanksgiving Day spotlight from them. So I understand where they're coming from. And when you look at the Denver Broncos, because this is the real crux of the matter here, the Denver Broncos, if you want to give me the fact that did the Denver Bronco quarterbacks violate the protocols? Well, sure, I guess you can say that if you're telling me that every single minute of every single day that you're in the facility, you got to wear masks. If that's the rule, then sure. I mean, so if we want to take that hard of a line, then I'm not going to argue with that. But what I will say is, number one, I'm pretty sure. Well, I don't know this for sure, but I would venture to say that they're not the only ones that have slipped up in mask wearing. I see it in my place of work day after day. I mean, people, you got people being lackadaisical about it. I mean, it's one of those things that I think as a society, we've kind of got all caught up in masks based on, I think the election has had something to do with it. I think the political climate has had something to do with it. I think some of those are just have made an effect on as maybe the science itself. You mentioned the word placebo a little bit earlier when we was talking. I think that's a really good way to put it. I think some of it, you got a whole lot of opinions that say, they're good. And I think they may slow the spread of it, but I don't think they stop it. So that's a huge thing. And then, I think, some people have the idea that if everyone wore masks, then the virus would kind of go away. And I just don't think that's the case. But back to the issue of the Denver Broncos. when you look at what happened to them with, I believe it was Jeff Driscoll that, tested positive first. And then the NFL, through the use of surveillance video, I believe, they went back through and they identified that, there was some,
It was a
mass.
quarterback meeting where all the quarterbacks were in the room together.
Right. Yep. And they identified, because of Driscoll's positive test, they identified the other 3 as close contacts. So then you got to, isolate those guys. They deemed them ineligible for the game. What I am saying, the argument that I am going to make to you and the viewers is that, well, you have to understand there is an exception to every rule. There is. Think about this in terms of the quarterback position. Remember back in the day when you could like legit hit quarterbacks? Well, you can't hit quarterbacks. You know why? Because they're special. Quarterbacks are special. Remember when Tom Brady got his knee tore up by somebody that tackled him low? I believe it was Kansas City Chiefs first game of the season, 2008. I believe that's when it was. His name was Bernard Pollard. He rolled him up. Brady tore his ACL, and then what happened? Well, you can't hit quarterbacks low again. Do you remember when Aaron Rodgers, this was maybe 3-4 years ago, he was rolling right. Anthony Barr tackled him after he threw the ball. Rodgers landed on his shoulder, broke his collarbone, I believe. You can't land on quarterbacks anymore. They have made that illegal. And I don't know where the rule came about to where you can't touch a quarterback's helmet. But you can't touch a quarterback's helmet anymore without getting a 15-yard roughing the passer penalty. So the comparison I'm trying to make to you is the NFL has deemed quarterbacks are not equal to every other position on the field. And we know that. Look at how they're paid. It's the most important position on the field. It may be the most important position in all of sports. And because of that, you have to as much as you may want to make the argument that the NFL was right to maybe make an example out of them, if I was the NFL, I would have acted a little bit more lenient with them. Maybe you find the players, maybe you find them, maybe you find the team, maybe you find the coach, but to punish the entire team and not allow them to get a couple days to where maybe one of their quarterbacks comes back and gets to play this game, I think the NFL did a great disservice to itself. They did a great disservice to everyone that watched this game, because it was an absolute atrocity. I don't blame this kid that they called up off the practice squad, Kendall Hinton, I believe that's his name. Mm-hmm. This dude went 1 for 9 for 12 yards and an interception. What the Broncos completed one pass in this game, and I don't blame this young man at all. I'm not. I think some people, there are a lot of participation trophy comments being made, oh yeah, to give him the golf clap. He came out there and competed and all this. I'm not going to celebrate the guy, but I certainly don't. He's not at fault, because you look. He probably found out maybe less than 24-hour notice. Hey, you got to play quarterback tomorrow. And not only that, think about the coaching staff. Now the coaching staff has less than 24 hours to implement a game plan around him. So, you could tell it was one of those situations where it wasn't a fair fight. Matter of fact, I'm a little, you know how I feel about the New Orleans Saints. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFC. And I think their defense is certainly a defense to be respected. I think they're playing a great football right now. But even some of the stuff I'm seeing on the field, when they're some of the most lavish celebrations you're seeing out there, in the fourth quarter, when you're up by 4 touchdowns. Really, I know it's hard to play defense these days, but it's actually easy to play defense if you know what's coming. And the Denver Broncos couldn't throw the football, so some of the celebrations were a little over the top for me. But to me, the NFL, I don't. You can tell me they got this right, and if you want to play by the rules that to that effect, that's fine. But we know quarterbacks, I'm not going to say they're above the law, but they're the exception to the rule. They absolutely are. And in this instance, that is my specific problem with this. The NFL showed they showed, that there was no consideration at all from what I see that would maybe, I don't understand I get the outbreaks, but let me tell you about this. All these different teams with outbreaks. So I guess the better thing for Denver would have done was to have a full-fledged outbreak, and they
Yep.
postpone the game. That's what all these other teams. Are you really going to make the argument that the Baltimore Ravens should be rewarded, and their game gets postponed almost a week, and they have a positive test for 10, at least one positive test for 10 straight days, and you're going to tell me they're doing everything right? You can't sell me on that. I'm sorry. And then, oh, by the way, let me get to this dude. Sometimes, I scroll, I see different things. You peruse ESPN from time to time. ESPN has this fellow named Dan Orlovsky, who does, NFL work for them. Apparently, he's a rising star on that network. I don't recognize him as such. But the thing I remember most about Dan Orlovsky, beside his relatively unimpressive NFL career, was the fact that he was part of the 0-16 Detroit Lions. That's what I remember. Okay. That's what I remember about Dan Orlovsky. Newsflash. Dan Orlovsky had a video out there, kind of discussing the Denver Broncos and their quarterback situation and the fact that they didn't wear masks for a 5-minute period or whatever. And basically mass shaming these players and telling the viewers how unacceptable it was to not wear masks. And that's fine, but the overall, the tone and just the overreach and some of the logic was just so flawed and so ridiculous. And it just speaks to the overarching, in my mind, the information crisis we have in this country that I have referenced, probably not on this show, but in private conversations. The fact that you can it's almost like not wearing masks, and you've probably heard, political officials say this from time to time. It's almost as if not wearing a mask makes you a bad person. And that's just illogical, and it's ridiculous. And he also made the argument like, you know what? If you also, because of this one incident, these backup quarterbacks who would have gotten an opportunity to play, well, you can't tell your family that you didn't get an opportunity to play quarterback in the NFL because you messed it up because you didn't wear a mask. I don't know if Dan Orlovsky knows the Denver Bronco quarterback situation, but I know it right. I know it quite well. Drew Lock's out there. He's playing. We'll see what happens. But these backup quarterbacks that supposedly blew their opportunity to play football, would you care to? You already know one of them, right? Actually, you know what? I'll get to him.
I'm very familiar.
No, don't even say it. Don't get to say it. I'll get to him last. But Brett Ripien, by the way, we saw him against the New York Jets earlier. He's played football this season. He's not that great. How about Blake Bortles? Do we really need to see more of Blake Bortles? Because Blake Bortles didn't wear a mask for 5 minutes? Is that really the thing that's going to blow the rest of his possible NFL career? No, yeah, you're right, Dan. It's the mask. It's not the subpar performance, the subpar career he had with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's not the fact that he went to the Los Angeles Rams and couldn't even hold down a backup position, apparently. No, it's not none of that. It's the fact that he couldn't wear a mask in Denver. And then, oh, by the way, let me get to the last one. And actually, they say the last but not least. No, this is last and the least. Jeff Driscoll. Yeah, Jeff Driscoll, the one I referenced earlier. Yeah, not Jeff Driscoll didn't even have a good, impressive college career. And somehow he's in the NFL taking up a roster spot. But no, his positive COVID test has blown his NFL career out the water. That's what did it. These are the type of things, and I don't reference his name very often, but these are the type of situations and these are the type of quarterbacks that people keep bringing up the name Colin Kaepernick. Because you got certain individuals like Jeff Driscoll and Nathan Peterman that just at this level cannot play with any stretch of the imagination. But you're right, Dan. It's the mask. The fact that they didn't wear masks, that's the just 100% heinous crime that has really blown their career out the water. Not their subpar performance on the football field. Go ahead.
That's outstanding. This whole situation was really bizarre from the get-go, and again, the context is that Driscoll tested positive, but then because he was in close contact, in the NFL, the way they've handled this with COVID is anyone they go back and when a positive person, a test comes back, they trace back to who you were near. And if you were near somebody, there's a period of time you have to be away before they can confirm, because you know how it is, you can test negative, but still kind of have it and it just hasn't come up yet. Yep. So that was the whole idea, but it just happened to hit all the quarterbacks. They were in a room together, which what the NFL has kind of tried to say is they are not going to make any of these determinations based off of competitive advantage, as in, let's say the Ravens lose Lamar Jackson or the Chiefs lose Patrick Mahomes, but that's the only player. They're not going to make an exception and go, well, your good players are out, so you get another week.
I'm with that. I'm with that.
And that's, to me, is fair. But in this situation, again, you're talking about an exception to the rule of a team does not have a quarterback. That product was miserable. I mean, it was. I turned
Absolutely.
it. I was very fascinated by, well, what's this going to look like? I turned it on, and then
I am to be very, very clear, I am a fan of the Denver Broncos. That game was nauseating and absolutely disgusting because of the fact that they did not have a quarterback. It was almost unwatchable.
I watch a lot of bad football, and I was just like, this is awful. And I think if y'all were like playing the Jets or something, you may have still had a chance. But you were playing the freaking Saints. I mean, there's no way the Saints were going to lock all that down. And I mean, they weren't doing much on the other side with Taysom Hill for a while, but they figured it out. But the sad part is, like, the NFL, what they wanted to do here was make a example. They wanted to make an example, and they wanted to say, well, you violated protocol. So you don't get a break, but at the same time, it affects the product on the field so negatively that why was that game even played? That was a complete waste of time. Like, if nothing else, you should have told the Broncos, hey, you can't play this week, sorry, and forfeit it. But the NFL is really trying to stick to their guns on this, not moving or not canceling games and postponing to a extra week, because right now with the bye weeks pretty much wrapped up, they have to push back against to going into the 18th week. They have to open up another week and move everything back, and they don't want to do that.
That's what should have happened.
Right, and that's where they're at. I think that it would be very responsible of them to go ahead and open that week up. You could have had Lamar Jackson back when the Steelers and Ravens just played instead of Trace McSorley and RG3 on one leg running around. You could have had you guys actually played at full health, and you had your quarterback, and it would also give them way more flexibility. They pushed that Steelers game from Thursday to a Wednesday. They played 6 games, and now it's had a chain reaction down the schedule where 4 or 5 of their games have all had to be moved, and you're playing on Tuesdays, and it's a train wreck. Why are we doing this? Just open the extra week. You've been doing well with this so far. Now there's some more positives. It's spreading around a little bit. It looks like whatever strain we have now is a little more spreadable, but it's not quite as severe. But you're going to have more positives, and the best thing for me, in my opinion, is just go ahead and open it up. And, the mask thing, I agree with you. I think that the narrative has overtaken the actual science of it. The narrative is just now wear a mask or die type thing. And it's a silly thing, but I've always kind of been the follow the rules guy when it comes to stuff like this, when you're getting paid. So I do have to say that they were kind of being silly. Like, they know they're chipped, they know they're tracked, they know they're surveilled. There was to say like they just didn't have their masks on in a direct violation of the protocol. Like, they've got to know better. But yeah, these clowns like Orlovsky coming down with like this self-righteous, just holier art thou stuff, it's ridiculous. It honestly is just.
And you know as well as I do, and we've seen it. If you any paying attention to any type of news, if you're paying attention, you know the ones that sometimes harp the most on these restrictions and these regulations, they be the first one out there violating them too.
Right.
So I'm sure that Dan Orlovsky, with his mass sermon about it's ruining NFL player careers, particularly the ones that they're subpar to begin with, at least on this level, I'm sure that he is the most diligent mask wearer and social distancer that you've ever seen in your coronavirus life. I'm sure he is. I hope he is. Because because if he's not, I hope we never catch video of Dan Orlovsky not wearing a mask inside or outside. I better see. Matter of fact, I don't know why he doesn't wear a mask on camera if he's that into him.
And that's the narrative has taken over the science of, yeah, they probably work to some degree. They're probably better than nothing. But at the same time, again, thinking that they're some catch-all, cure-all. I mean, that's not happened anywhere in the world that's had mandates. They've still had outbreaks. It's like, it's a thing that it's better than nothing. But again, like painting this as it's an all or nothing, like, oh, like you can't get you if you wear your mask. Like, it's just another mitigation. Mitigation does not mean removal.
Right. And don't you think also in some of Orlovsky's comments, it's funny, the fact that maybe you don't wear a mask, or you were lax in wearing a mask at a particular moment in time. Now they want to equate it to an example of poor leadership. Isn't that to me is a huge stretch? Don't
It
you think?
is.
That's what I
There's
think.
a. It's a bit. It's definitely a stretch. I mean, again, if you have a rule, you're supposed to follow it, and if you're not following it, then why would anyone else follow it? And again, he's got a point in the message, but it's so like overly sanctimonious. And that's the tone you get from so many people in government and on celebrities and stuff. They're all like this. They're pushing that narrative to death, and it just. I think people are getting sick of it, honestly, and that's because the
I know.
messaging is just so again it's like if you either wear your mask or you're the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of time, and it's just like, come on. But at the same time, these guys have got to be smarter. They're getting paid millions of dollars. They tell you to put a cloth over your face, just do it. I mean, you're getting paid
I,
millions of dollars to do this. It's not incredibly difficult, I mean, to do so. Did it wind up affecting anything? No, because none of them, these guys are all back at practice. There's no issue now.
how about
So
that? Yeah.
they could have played today. They could have did a doubleheader at 3-4, like 12:15 and 3:40 on a Wednesday or something. But whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think that the only thing I had to point for this was I think some of these teams might want to consider kind of like a designated survivor type protocol where they just take like key positions and just don't have them near the team. Like if Blake
I
Bortles
think
is your fourth quarterback, just have him go home. Just
I
stay
think
home,
I,
Blake.
and I
Like,
I think I think Denver's taking that step already. They're
right.
keeping
Okay.
Bortles away from the
Yeah.
facility just in case they wind up to another position. I would also say to that end, if you may be looking at solutions for some of these some of these issues, maybe you got to go like you keep your quarterback separate and like any like meetings you just run them over. I don't know. Maybe run them over Zoom. What are we using
Yeah,
now? Are
that
we
or
using
just
Zoom?
have all
You
your
know,
meetings outside. I don't know.
or
But
that
these teams
something.
have got to they're going to have to get a little smarter about this because it looks like this is going to be the trend is the more cases and they're going to have to dance around this even more than they have. And, the teams that don't adapt are going to have issues. And then, this, of course, being like the worst example of that issue. But there's going to be more issues if they don't get it figured out.